today's session. I just need 1 minute to set up my system so that I can get started on this. I'm sorry for joining around 10 minutes late. Well, I stay in Bengaluru and you know how the traffic is like in the city, so I got a little bit late to reach my home, but I'm still happy that at least I am able to take the session. Okay, let's get started. Just allow me 1 minute, please. Just getting there. So this is a 3-day session, and my name is Shantanu Shubham. Okay, so before we get started, I want to give a quick introduction about myself. So hi everyone, my name is Shantanu Shubham. I am a software engineer too, working with Intuit in Bengaluru, and of working experience as a full stack engineer, primarily working with backend technologies, mostly focused around JavaScript and Java programming language. And I have been associated with Geeks for Geeks for quite some time now, taking at Geeks for Geeks JDBL sessions, which are basically Java backend development sessions. So that's what I do. And this particular session is mostly going to be around the same. I would request the Geeks for Geeks representative over here to allow me the permission to share my video if that is possible. I don't have that access with me right now. May I have the access to share my video? Okay. In the meantime, I get that access with me. Yeah, I did get it. Great. So now you guys can see me as well. So like I was saying that I work with Intuit and I am having close to 4 years of working experience. I work with Geeks for Geeks as well, where I help a lot of learners learn Spring Boot related backend development in Java programming language. So this particular outline that we have is going to be for 3 days, which is going to be today, tomorrow, and the day after. And this is mostly going to be focused around Spring Boot backend development. So it's like a crash course, workshop, like whatever you want to call it. But what I want to assure in this is that I will help you learn Spring Boot in the best way that I can in this 3 days of time that we have. Okay, so we have a small breakdown of a lot of things, and this particular session or this series of sessions for these 3 days will require us to have basic knowledge around a few topics. That would be prerequisites, and that would be necessary. If you don't have those prerequisites, it can be very challenging for you to understand the session and have everything taken care of. So it can be challenging in that case. So therefore, I would request all of you to have those prerequisites. So each of these sessions will be 3 hours each, which will span from Indian Standard Time 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. So we were supposed to start the session at 8. However, I joined at 8:10. I gave you the reason already. And these sessions will be scheduled from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. every single day. That is today, tomorrow, and the day after, which is 6th May, 7th May, and 8th May. Okay. Now let's get to understand what are the prerequisites. So today, which is May 6th, today we'll be studying 3 topics or 4 topics. I mean, we can bifurcate them however we want, but let me just tell you what these are. First is setting up Spring Boot projects. Second is building REST APIs with CRUD operations. And third is connecting to MySQL database. Okay. So for understanding today's class, you need the following. You need to know what is object-oriented programming. You need to know Java programming language. You need to know a build tool like Maven or Gradle, and you need to know a little bit around databases. These are the 4 things that you require for today's class. Apart from this, you might also require a little bit of knowledge around REST APIs because that is something we will be covering today. So 4 prerequisites are needed for today. First is object-oriented programming. Second is Java programming language. Third is build tool, which is something like Maven or Gradle, which is a build tool in Java. Fourth is databases. Like you need to know basic knowledge around what is a database, how it works, etc., etc. And fifth is a little bit knowledge around REST APIs. So these are the 5 prerequisites for today's class. If you don't have these prerequisites, it can be challenging for you to understand today's class. I can see a lot of people writing in the chat box something related to Python. Well, this is not at all related to Python, not even closely associated with Python at all. You may use Kotlin if you want, but I am assuming a lot of people in the audience will be more familiar with Java in comparison to Kotlin. So I will be moving ahead with Java only. Okay. Somebody mentioned I know CPP and don't know any build tool. That's okay, but as long as you can use your CPP knowledge into Java, it's going to be fine. See, whenever we are into corporate and whenever we are working in a full-time job, we don't necessarily happen to know every single thing. Okay, we don't necessarily happen to know every single thing. Let's say tomorrow I change my job. I go into a new company, a new project. It's not 100% given that I will be getting a project which was something related to what I already know. It may conceptually be related to what I already know, but the language and the technology can be different. So it is totally like it's very important for all of us to understand that we need to be flexible around it. What we must focus on is on the concept, which we can make use of and utilize wherever necessary. Okay. If anybody over here does not know Java or a JVM based language or any other object oriented programming language, it can be very difficult. So that's it. So I'm just trying to clear the picture over here and let's get started. Okay. So uh, that will be necessary. Somebody has mentioned, are we going to use SQL or NoSQL? We will be using a SQL type database. So I am going to choose to use a PostgreSQL database. You can use MongoDB, you can use MySQL database or Oracle DB, whatever relational database that you want to use. Is Maven necessary? Not, I mean, little bit, yes. So I will be using IntelliJ IDEA as my IDE. Okay, that's what I will be using. I will be using IntelliJ IDEA as my IDE. You can choose to use STS or Visual Studio Code or Eclipse or NetBeans, whatever you want, whatever works for you. Okay, whatever works for you. All right, let's get started. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Are you able to see my screen? I think you should be able to. Okay, great. Let's get started. So let me open Chrome. Please do not draw on my screen. First thing, my screen is not a drawing board. Second thing, your drawing is not good. Okay, so I've disabled the annotation and yeah, my Chrome is already here. Okay, so prerequisites that you would require for your system for supporting whatever coding that we are doing is you need to have a version of Java installed on your machine. So if you are on a Mac or a Windows, depending on your computer, you need to have Java installed on your machine. So I currently have Java installed on my machine. Therefore, I will not be progressing with installing Java on my machine. Okay. Java, if you have Java 17 or any version above that, that is good. But if you have a version below Java 17, it is my suggestion that you move to Java 17 or above. Okay. All right, let's get started. I am constantly seeing something on the chat box that a lot of people are mentioning their comfort level with C++, but this whole technology is not related to C++ at all. So if you know C++, that's great. If you can understand the concepts of Java with the help of C++, that's also great, but we cannot do this in C++. That's one thing I want to tell you, or any other programming language for that matter. Okay, so first thing that we will do is we are going to assume that we already have Java installed on our machine, and we already have all of our IDs necessary tools that we have installed on our machine. Okay. However, I will still help you download and install Maven on your machine because I'm assuming some people might not have Maven installed on their machine, so that's okay. I will help you install Maven, but for others, you need to follow with me. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to type on Google is going to be called as Spring Initializer. Okay, Spring Initializer. So you will notice this kind of a website, start.spring.io. Okay, what is this? So if I open this up, this is actually a tool which is provided to us by Spring as a technology, which is going to help us understand or which is going to help us create our very first Spring Boot project or initialize a Spring Boot type of project. However, this tool is not mandatory for you to use in order for you to initialize a Spring Boot project, but it makes things very, very simple and nice. Therefore, we are going to use it. But before that, we need to understand what is Spring Boot, right? We need to understand what is Spring Boot. In order to understand what is Spring Boot, I want to showcase to you, I'll make a diagram in front of you so that you guys understand what Spring Boot is. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. All right. So in order for you to understand Spring Boot, I have a story to tell you. Okay. Let's say you go to a restaurant. Okay. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you start ordering food. Okay. In order to order food, you have to look at the menu. Is that correct? You have to look at the menu, decide what you want to eat, and then you have to place an order. Okay. That's what happens, right? So when you place an order for any item, that item is cooked in the kitchen of the restaurant. Once the item is cooked, then the restaurant gives you that food, right? Then the restaurant gives you that food item. Is that correct? Right? Then the restaurant gives you that food item. So over here, you are the customer and you are trying to decide what you want to eat, which is written on a menu. Once you have decided what you want to eat, you place an order, most probably to a waiter. And once you have placed the order, the restaurant's job is to prepare that food in the kitchen and then give you that food item, right? So now, given this example that we just discussed about a restaurant where you are going to place an order, so the restaurant's kitchen where all the food items are made and given to the customer, that is like a Spring Boot project. But in what context? It is like a Spring Boot project in a web application. In a web application. Now, what is a web application? We all have used projects, or we all have used websites like Myntra or Amazon or Flipkart or any other shopping website for that matter, right? We have used those kind of websites. We kind of use it almost every day, right? Have we used Amazon? Have we used Instagram? Have we used Facebook? We have used these technologies, right? These kind of applications. Now, let's say when you try to place an order on Amazon, let's say you want to order an iPhone. Okay. So you place an order on Amazon that you are looking for an iPhone. So the moment you place an order, then a lot of things are going to happen, like asking for payment information, etc., right? A lot of things are going to happen. So once you have given all of this information, something happens in the background which confirms your order, tells you that your order number is this is the expected delivery date, this is the address you have chosen. A lot of other information is given to you, correct? That is related to your order confirmation or anything related to your order, right? So when you place an order and when you click on place order and after you have made the payment and everything, Amazon is going to take all the information that has been given to it, like what item is being ordered, how much it is being ordered, what was the discount, what was the total price paid, was the member who was placing in the order was a Prime member or not, is it present in the inventory, is it out of stock, what is the delivery date and time, etc., etc. A lot of things are going to be processed, and after the processing of all of these information, you will get the confirmation screen of your order, correct? You will get the confirmation screen of the order, right? So once you have it, then you are able to assume or understand that your order is placed. So some sort of processing happens inside it also. In fact, whenever you are trying to click any single button on any website, the chances of it involving a backend system is very high. So whenever you have a web application, the brain of that application or the main place where all the processing happens is the backend of that application. Okay, so a backend of an application is mostly always connected with is mostly always exposing a few APIs backend. Okay, so this backend is something that we will be building. This is like the brain of any application. So we write all the logic, all the processing related items, all the necessary logic that are special to our application inside the backend only. So the backend takes in information from outside and then processes that information and then sends back a response. That is the whole job of a backend, and that is the whole job of backend engineer. Okay, to make the backend is the job of a backend engineer. So Spring Boot is a technology which is written in Java or Kotlin, which is used to create backend. Spring Boot is a technology which is written in either Java or Kotlin, which is used to create backend. Okay, so that is the reason why we have Spring Initializer. Okay, so this Spring Initializer will help us create the Java project. Okay, so here, if you can open this website, Spring Initializer, we want to select a few configurations so that we can get started. Okay, so my project will be of type Maven. Okay, my project will be of type Maven. Language will be Java. My version of Spring Boot will be 3.4.5, that is already selected. Now, what is group, artifact, name, description, package name, and other things? Well, these are some fields that are going to help you understand what is the signature of your project. In simple words, what is the name of your project? Like, for example, in your school or in your college, you have your roll number, right? University roll number or registration number, which can be uniquely used to identify you. Just like that, in order to uniquely identify your project, we need a combination of these fields. Okay, so I will write something like this. In group, I will write org.geeks for geeks. Okay, the artifact, that is a name or like public name of my project, can be, let's say, crash course. Crash course Spring. Okay, the name also will be the same. I'll write a description. This is a crash course. That's it. Packaging will be a jar file and Java version will be 17. Okay. Now that we have this, I'll click on this part of the website, which is add dependencies. I'll click on add dependencies, and then I will start to write a few important things that I need. Okay. So what are the things that I need? As of now, I need Lombok. What is Lombok will come to it will come to it later. As of now, I need Lombok. So I've selected Lombok. Second, I need Spring Web. So I'll click on Spring Web. Do I need anything else? Let's see. I think I might need database. So I will look for database. So I will look for Spring Data JPA. That is something I need. So I'll click on this. Other thing I'll need is PostgreSQL. So for database connection, I am going to use Postgres, which is a type of a relational database, which is a type of a relational database. You can choose to use MySQL as well. Whatever you want, you can use it. If somebody is mentioning, can we use JDBC? You can, but that's not how Spring wants you to use it. Okay. You can use MySQL. There is going to be no change in the code. Okay. So even for MySQL, you can use JPA. That's not a problem. Okay. Now I can see a lot of questions are coming on the chat box. However, I want to tell this to you very upfront that it is difficult for me to answer all of your questions right now because I have to, like the people who have the context of what we are going to do, I have to make sure that I teach or I help you guys understand what we are learning. Okay, once we are done with that, which I think we will be having around 2.5 hours will take for finishing the items that we are planned for today. And once that happens, we will be taking in all the questions. Okay. So now the next thing that I will be adding over here is Postgres. So I'll write Postgres SQL driver. I'll click on this. Once it is done, then I will click on generate. Okay. The moment I click on generate, this will download a zip file for me. Okay. This will download a zip file for me. All right. So now that I have a zip file for me, I will just open this zip file. Okay. So let me show it to you how it's looking like. So this is my zip file. Okay, I will unzip it. This is unzipping. And now I have my zip file over here. So I'll move it to a right project or a right location. Projects. Yeah, let's move it here. Okay. After moving it here, I will open IntelliJ. Okay. So IntelliJ is my IDE, which I will be using throughout this course. So I will open IntelliJ. So I have IntelliJ already installed on my machine and I have just opened it. If you don't have IntelliJ installed on your machine, I will suggest you that you can install it. If you have any other IDE, you may also use it. But there's a condition that you must know how to use that IDE from the perspective of Spring Boot. Okay, VS Code is also fine. Okay, I'll go to projects. After going to projects, I will select Crash Course Spring, which is something I created right now. Okay, after selecting it, I will just click on open. Okay, I will just click on open. So I'll click open on this window only. So this will open the project for me. See, VS Code does support Java. That's not a problem. Okay, so now that I have opened this project in my IntelliJ IDEA. Okay. Okay, in order to move forward, we will require Maven, Maven. We will require Maven. Okay, some people are asking, how can you repeat the process? Okay, in order to repeat the process, I'll just show it to you one more time. You need to go to Spring Initializer, which is start.spring.io. Let me write this message, or let me write this URL in the chat box. Okay, so this is a URL. After opening this URL, you need to select this kind of configuration that I have selected on my screen. Okay, let me also send a screenshot for the same so that you have this with you. Okay, I have shared the screenshot with you on the chat box as well so that it is simpler for you to understand how you can move ahead. Okay, so this is your configuration. Once you have selected this configuration, just click on the generate button. Once you click on this generate button, it will download a zip file for you. Unzip that .zip file and then open it inside your IDE. Now you can use any IDE of your choice, but I will be using IntelliJ IDEA in order to make progress for this particular whole session. Okay, so now some people are mentioning, can you please zoom in your ID? I will do that. Right now, you cannot see any code, right? So if you would see, you will know that it's written in the right font size. Okay, is this font size okay? Right now, my font size is 24. I hope this font size is okay for you. Is this font size okay, or you want me to enlarge it? I think this should be fine. Okay, so when you open your, when you have unzipped it, and after unzipping, when you open this inside your IDE, you will see something like this. Okay, so this is the name of your, this is the name of your folder. Inside it, you will see a lot of folders. One of the folders you will see is SRC. Inside SRC, you will see main and test. If you open main, you will see Java. If you open Java, you will see a very long folder name like org.geeks4geeks.crash underscore course underscore spring. And inside it, there is only one Java file called crash course spring application, which has a main function, public static void main, that says spring application.run crash course spring application.class, args. I will also teach. No, deployment is not something I'll be teaching today, Mangesh. Deployment is very different and it depends on a lot of things and a lot of technologies and a lot of resources that we require. However, we don't have it, so we will not be talking about deployments. This entire 3-day session will just be around development and not around deployments. Okay, let's move ahead. So this is the only main function that you will be seeing inside your Spring Boot application. So for people who are familiar with languages like C++ and Java, you would know that there is a requirement of a main function in order to run your file. Is that correct? There's a requirement of a main function to run your file, right? So inside your Spring Boot application, this is going to be the only file with the main function. So you need to run this main file in order to move ahead or in order to test your changes or see whether you're getting the expected output or not. Okay, so that is what is going to happen. So I cannot slow down. We are already at 8:37. If I slow down, I will cross the mark beyond 11 p.m., which I don't want to do. So I want people to cooperate. Okay, moving ahead. So a lot of you might be seeing errors inside your code because Maven might not be installed on your system. So I want you to understand how to install Maven on your machine. So Maven is a build tool which is going to help you with resolving these dependencies. So a Spring Boot application requires a lot of things that are not present in JVM or JDK. So if you're having Java installed on your machine, let's say Java 17, for example, it will have a lot of classes and a lot of like interfaces, a lot of Java related code that is already present. Okay, a lot of Java related code is already present. It has a lot of packages. However, when we work with Spring or any external development in Java, we need external packages. In order to fetch these external packages, we sometimes require a build tool, which is why we need to have Maven on our machine. So in Java, we have multiple build tools that we can use. One of them is Maven, and that is the one that we are going to use. If you are using a Mac machine, if you're using a MacBook or a Mac machine, all you need to do is to go to your terminal and write brew, BREW, install Maven. This is all you need to do. So once you have installed Maven, you can check whether Maven is installed on your machine or not. In order to do that, you can just write mvn dash dash version. Okay, this will tell you whether Maven is installed on your system or not. Okay, so for people who are using a Mac machine, please try this brew install Maven in order to install Maven on your machine. BREW install Maven. Okay, so for people who are on Windows or on Linux, there is a different method of installation. However, this method also works on a Mac machine, so you can try to do this as well. Okay, in order to install Maven, just go to Google Chrome and write Maven or just write Apache, Apache Maven. The moment you write Apache Maven, you will see this website, maven.apache.org/download. So just go to this website and you will see something like this. When you get to this website, I want you to download this binary zip archive. So download this binary zip archive for you. So if you click on download, this will download a zip file for you. As you can see over here, it has downloaded that zip file for me. So now that that zip file is present with me, I will unzip this zip file. Once I unzip this zip file, I will open the folder in which it got unzipped. And after that, I can see a bin folder inside it. So you need to add this bin folder in your operating system's path. The moment you add it, your mvn command will start to work. Okay, so now for Windows users, you already know how to add things to your path. So you just need to go to your environment variables tabs in your control panel and then add this path in your machine. For Mac users, you need to edit your ZSH RC file or bash RC file in order to add this path in your current path. And then it will start to work if you are not using brew. And the same is also true for Linux. Okay, for Linux users also, it is going to be the same. There is no maximization needed. It is just my file explorer. Okay, the main thing over here is downloading this. So if you download this, you will get a zip file, unzip it, unzip it. After unzipping, you will see a bin folder. Just add this bin folder to your path. If you are using brew, this will not be needed for Mac users. If you're not using brew, then whatever operating system you are on, you need to follow the same steps. Okay, so that is what you will require. Okay, so once you are in this bin folder, add this bin folder to your path. I'll show you how it looks like on my system. So I will open my terminal. This is my terminal on my Mac machine. Okay, I will open my cat ZSHRC. You can see my path over here. So my path has the location to my Maven. That is why it works. Okay, that is how. So how to do this in Windows machine? The same thing. You need to unzip your Maven folder. After unzipping, you need to add this to your environment variables. If you don't know how to add something to your environment variables, that is a different story. But yeah. Okay. So for people who don't know how to add this to a Windows path, you can just maybe do a YouTube or a Google search that will help you. Uh, yeah, that's it. Or one thing we can do, we can have one Windows user from the audience, and I can show how to add it, how to add this to your path. Okay. So anybody who would like to volunteer, I don't want to take more than 5 minutes for this. Anybody who would like to volunteer, you may raise your hand. A Windows user. Okay. Pravina, I'm giving you a screen share access. I'm not sure if I can give that to you. Oh, I cannot give you the screen share access. Okay. Therefore, I will not be able to do it. Okay. Did my screen sharing got stopped? Did my screen sharing stop, guys? No, I think it's still there. Okay. So this is how we install Maven. Okay. So after the Maven has been installed, then all you need to do is go back to your IntelliJ or whatever IDE you are using. And after opening the IDE, inside the terminal, just write nvn space clean, CLEAN space install. Make sure that you are in the right folder inside your terminal, because if you're not, then this will not work. Okay. So once you have written this, just press enter. This will download all the dependencies that are not present on your machine with the help of Maven and will set up your project. Okay, some errors came. Let's see what are these. Okay. I think it's trying to connect to a database which we don't have. The reason why this is throwing an error. Okay, for the timing, what we can do is that we can comment this. Yeah, we can just comment this and this. These are the two things we'll comment, and then we'll try to do it. So it's trying to connect to a database, which we have not done yet. That's why that error is coming. Okay, so these dependencies, which are present in a file called as pom.xml, I have commented these out. So this pom.xml file is going to contain information about your project. What kind of information is it going to contain? This pom.xml file is going to contain the information like what kind of dependencies are required in your project, what is the Java version, and so on and on and on. For this course outline that we are studying in these 3 days, we are going to understand one very important thing about pom.xml file, and that is that pom.xml file is going to take care of all the dependencies. So if we go back to Spring Initializer, whatever things we added over here in dependencies, those are the only things that are coming to our pom.xml file. So we added 4 dependencies over there. Therefore, we will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dependencies, out of which this one is the most basic one. Starter test. This is present in every Spring project. And these are the 4 dependencies that we have added using our Spring Initializer. So right now, we have just commented out these 2 dependencies because they are requiring a database connection, which we have not made yet. Therefore, we have just commented it out as of now. Okay. So the command that I was using was this mvn space clean space install. Let me just write it for you in the chat box. Mvn space clean space install. Mvn clean install. It's a lowercase m, not a uppercase. Mvn clean install. So let me know once this part, at least this much is working for you. This will also open in VS Code. You need the right extensions. So I cannot guide you on how to use an IDE, right? You need to understand what is your familiar IDE. It's giving an error on Windows. It's most probably you don't have Maven on your path. That's why. The Maven installation is you need to go to this website. I'll share the link also. Okay, go to this website, click on this link, Apache Maven 399 bin zip. Download this file, unzip it, go to bin folder, whatever is the path, add it to your path. Yes, you can do it in Eclipse also. Next step is open your project in your IDE. Make sure you are in the right path in your IDE, and then write mvn clean install. Maven is a build tool which will help you to build and build your project. That's it. No, we have not configured application.properties. I think Android Studio is also fine. Maybe, I don't know. I have never used Spring Boot with Android Studio, so I don't know. Maybe, but it should be fine, I'm assuming, but I don't know. Okay. All right. I'm assuming for all of you, MVN clean install is going to work fine. Okay. So I am now assuming that for all of you, this is working fine. MVN clean install is working fine. Okay. So this is how we set up our Spring Boot projects. Okay. This is how we set up our Spring Boot project. Okay. So now we have successfully finished one part of our today's course or today's class. Okay. Today we have studied one part of today's class. Right now we have finished. Okay. That is how to set up a Spring Boot project. For this, you need Java installed on your machine. You need Maven installed on your machine because we are using Maven. And you need to have a Maven project inside which the pom.xml files have the required dependencies present. Now, once MVN clean install is working absolutely fine on your computer, then go to this file, crash course Spring application, and inside this file, you will see these kind of play buttons. Or what I just want to tell you is that just try to run this file directly. Okay, so I can run this file by clicking on this button. Once I click on it, I see an option of running, and then I just click on run. The moment I click on run, it will try to run my Java file. So as you can see, this is the only Java file that has a main function. Therefore, it is very simple to run this Java file. Therefore, I'm trying to run this Java file right now. Okay, so it is trying to run my Java file. It says port 8080 is already in use. That's most probably because of something that I was doing in the past. That's okay. No problem. What I can do right now is let me free my port. Just give me 1 second. This is not something you have to do. This is just something for me. PSCF crap. You need to open this resources folder. Inside this resources folder, you will see a file called file. Okay, and you will see something like this. So here you can see if it is going to work fine now. Default port is 8080. That is correct. For in my system, I think I'm already using that port for something else which I don't remember. So in order to shut down. Okay. So if I write it like this, server.port equals 7070, then I will be able to start my server at port number 7070. Okay. Now what is the meaning of port number? Okay. Now I want to go back to this diagram and I want to show you this diagram that I was making. Okay. So as you know, whenever we have to connect to a computer or let's talk about basic computer science. So you know that inside a computer, a CPU is there, right? Inside a computer, a CPU is there, right? Inside a computer, there is a CPU. Now this CPU has cores, threads, a lot of things, a lot of processes are running on the CPU, correct? So when you start your application or when you are running a piece of code, that means you are running your code on a process, right? We always try to run a process in the CPU. So CPU's job is to run processes. Okay. So when we start our code, the way it is looking right now, our Spring Boot application is running on a process of my CPU. Okay. It is running on the process of my CPU. Okay. Now, because my CPU is present inside my computer and because I want to connect to this process, I need to understand a few things. Now, because a backend application is a web application, we need to understand in which computer it is running. Now, my question is, in order to identify any computer which is connected to the internet, what do we need? In order to uniquely identify any computer or any device which is connected to the internet, what do we need? We need an IP address, correct? We need an IP address. Now, how does an IP address look? It is xxx.xxx.xxx.xxx, correct? So it is 02255.02255.02255.02255, correct? That is what an IP address is. That is what an IP address is. Okay, so because my backend application is running on my computer only, so I need to know what is the IP address of my computer. So depending on what kind of network I am in, our IP addresses can be different. Like right now, I'm connected to the Wi-Fi which is present at my home. But let's say tomorrow I go to my office and I connect internet, or I connect the Wi-Fi in my office, then my IP address will change. Correct? So I need something which always resolves to the IP address of my computer. Are you understanding my point? I need something which always tells me what is the IP address of my computer. So in all in all operating systems, you can access the IP address on your computer with the word localhost. So whenever you see the word localhost, it means the IP address of your computer. Current IP address of your computer. That is what localhost means. Got it? What is the meaning of localhost? IP address of your computer means localhost. Okay. So as you know, I started my server on port number 7070. In order to access my Spring Boot application, I need IP address. And apart from IP address, I also need port number. So because my port number is 7070, I will write a colon, which is double dots, just beside L, and then I will write my port number, which is 7070. In your case, it will be 8080 because that 8080 is running on your computer, but for some reason it is not running on my computer. Okay, so I will write 7070, and when I press enter, you will see something like this. Something like this. I want to understand if you are also seeing something like this when you write localhost 7070 or 8080 on your computer, on your Google Chrome, or any browser of your choice. Are you also seeing this? If yes, so far Spring Boot is working fine for your machine. Somebody is asking, is it an alternative for Node.js and JavaScript for backend? In a way, yes, it is. Somebody is asking, fail to configure a data source URL. Priya, that is happening because we have added a database dependency, but we are not connecting to a database. The reason why Spring Boot is not running. So in order to resolve this problem, just go to your pom.xml file and comment out these two dependencies. That is starter data JPA and PostgreSQL or MySQL if you're using MySQL. So just comment out these two dependencies and it will work, and then try to run it again. It will work absolutely fine. Okay, Kausalya has written local.host/8080. That is wrong. You must write localhost colon 8080, and you should not write HTTPS because it is not a secure URL as of now. If there is no run button on your project, that's most probably the fault of your IDE. Make sure if you're using the right IDE, it has the relevant packages and plugins and extensions installed for Java-based programming. If you're using IntelliJ, I'm surprised if do you have Java on your system? Okay, then you should be able to see it. Try to restart your IntelliJ. I think this should come because it is technically impossible for you to not see a run button in a Java project inside IntelliJ if you have Java installed. A pom.xml file will be present inside your crash course Spring application. A computer is identified with IP, but what is the purpose of port over and above IP address? So the port tells you where the process is running. So the process runs on a port. That's why. So you need to identify the computer with IP address and you need to identify the process with port number. That's why. Okay. So if you're able to see this page, that means your application is running fine so far. A POM file is basically a file which is going to talk about the information of your project. It is going to contain dependencies and child modules and how to handle the dependencies in child modules and etc. etc. It is complex. It is a lot of things. But for these 3 days, what I want you to understand is a pom.xml file is going to contain the information of dependencies of your project. Okay. So yeah, that's how it's going to be. All right. Now let's move ahead and try to build our first API. Now, in order to move to building an API, we need to understand what is an API. Okay. So let me go back and create a basic Java file. Let me just create a basic Java file. So the file that I'm going to create right now, it is not related to Spring Boot. It is just very simple Java programming, which I want to use in order to explain you a few things. Okay, so I'm stopping my Spring Boot application right now. I have stopped it and I am going to create a very basic Java file. Okay, so inside the SRC folder, I will create a new Java file or a new Java class. Or okay, inside main, let me create it over here. Java class. Let's call it Shantanu. Okay, so I've created a class called as Shantanu. Very simple. Okay, I've created a class called as Shantanu. Now inside this, I will write a main function. Main function. Okay, so you can see the moment I write main, these buttons have already come automatically. So yeah. Okay, now let's say I write the code. Let's say I write very simple function, public static int add two numbers. Okay, are you able to understand this code? It's very simple Java code, not related to Spring Boot. It's very simple code, just going to add two numbers and return the value. Now let's say I want to call this function. I want to call this add two numbers function. Okay, so in order to call this function, I will write the function over here, or I can just print it by writing system, or let's say int sum, or just a system.out.println add two numbers, let's say 5, 6. What will be the output? What will be the output for this? 11, right? So if I run this code, I should see 11. So I'm running this code and I see 11. This is correct. This is correct, right? So I see 11. Now I want you to focus on this, that I wrote a function. Now this can be any function, but I wrote a function and I triggered this function in my Java file. Is that correct? I triggered a call to this function. Is that correct? Now, how did I trigger it? How did let me make this slightly more interesting. If I write scanner, let's say sc is equals to new scanner system dot in. People coming from C++ would be laughing at us right now because they will think, oh my God, we have to write a lot of code in Java just to take an input instead of just writing C in. Okay, then I'll write int a is equals to sc dot next int. Then I'll write int b is equals to sc dot next int. And then I will write a comma b. Okay, so now if I run this code, it is like taking an input from the user. Okay, so I'm running this file again. And now I have to enter my numbers. Let's say I enter my first number as 10, second number as 12, then I'm getting my output as 22. So focus on what I am doing right now. In the first case, I hard coded the values of A and B, correct? In the first case, I hard coded the values of A and B. Is that correct? In the second case, I gave the information or I asked the user for the information. Is that correct? Right? In the second case, I took the information from the user. And then after taking the information, I triggered the add two numbers function call. Correct? That is what I did, right? So in a simple Java file, it is very simple to trigger a function call, right? It is very simple to trigger a function call. But in case of a backend application, things are very different. Things are very, very different. Okay, so let me go back to this diagram. And let's say I write this function call add two numbers. Add two numbers. Okay, so let's assume that this function is present inside a backend application. Let's assume that this function is present inside a backend application. Okay, so this function is present inside a backend application. Okay, so in order to make it look, I will make this like a function of x comma y. Okay, so this function is present where? In a backend application. Are you able to understand what I'm saying right now? Is the story clear so far? That let's assume that this function is present inside a backend application right now. So it is not very simple to just write the name of this function to trigger the function call. Like for example, let's say I want to run add two numbers with the help of two values that are going to come from the user. So if I start my backend application, you will see that the application does not terminate. You will notice that, let's wait for it to run. Okay, so it is running. Okay, so there is no place where I can tell or where I can write the logic of how to take input from the user, and I cannot write the input over here that I was expecting to do. So it is not as simple as triggering add to numbers function call, just like we did over here. It is different, which is what I'm going to help you understand. Okay, so whenever you want to trigger an application, whenever you want to trigger a function inside a Spring Boot or inside any backend, then you have to understand one very important thing, which is called as URL mapping, which is called as URL mapping. Okay, so you might have seen something like this. Let's say if I go to some website, let's say I go to flipkart.com, or let's say I go to Geeks for Geeks only, geeks.com. Okay, so I went to, okay, I think I wrote the wrong spelling, geeks.com. Okay, so this is opening Geeks for Geeks for me. Let's wait for it to open. Is it org? I don't even remember. Yeah, this is our one. Okay, so I've opened this website. Now suppose I click on courses, or if I click on, let's say, tutorials, then I click on data structures and algorithms. The moment I do this, can you see this part that I'm highlighting right now? This part. Can you see this extra part that got added over here? Yes. Okay. Suppose if I click something else, let's say ML and data science. The moment I click it, you can see that this part again got changed. After www.geeksforgeeks.org, and after that, whatever is written, that is getting changing. That is changing. Can you see that? Okay. So I want to talk to you about the same thing. So what happens in any application, whether front end or back end, focus on what I'm going to say. Okay. Let's say there are two parties. Let's say P1, party one, P1, or let's say remove parties. Let's say there are two people, person one and person two. Let's say it is news reporter, and let's say this guy is policeman. Okay, let's assume that something very huge has happened. Okay, let's assume that something huge is happening, some crime happened, and then there is a press conference that is happening. Okay, there's a press conference that is happening. So there is a news reporter who wants some information from the policeman. So the news reporter's job is to ask the policeman question. Yes, the news reporter's job is to ask questions from policeman. Policeman's job is to give answers. Correct? Correct? So let's assume that for every question the policeman is asking, for every question that the news reporter is asking, policeman has to revert with an answer. It is a mandatory thing. For every question, there has to be an answer. Are you understanding what I'm saying? For every question, there has to be an answer. Let's say they asked a question blah 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 blah, and let's say the policeman does not know the answer, then the policeman will give the answer as I don't know the answer, something like that. So for every question, there has to be an answer. Are you understanding what I'm saying? For every question, there has to be an answer. Okay, for every question, there has to be an answer. All right, now how are these questions going to be asked? Okay, so let's say the policeman has presented a small piece of paper. The policeman has presented a small piece of paper. Okay, where the policeman tells that I can only answer Q1, comma Q2, I can only answer Q1 and Q2 and Q3. I can only answer Q1, Q2, Q3. So if the news reporter asks a Q4, then the policeman will say, I don't know. If the reporter is going to ask a Q4, then policeman will say, I don't know. Okay, are you understanding what I'm saying? Are you understanding what I'm saying? So the policeman will show this Q1, Q2, Q3 to the reporter that, hey, reporter, see, I can only answer Q1, Q2, Q3. If you have to ask me questions, then ask me this. If you ask me anything else, then I will tell you I don't know. Clear so far? Okay, I will tell you I don't know. Okay, so that is what also happens in a backend application. So inside a backend application, what happens is there are two things. One thing is your backend, and the other is your client. So your client is like a news reporter. Your client is like a news reporter, and your backend is like your policeman. Your backend is like a policeman. Okay, your backend is like a policeman and your client is like a news reporter. So the client's job is to create request on backend, for which the backend has to revert with a response. That means for every request, there will be a response. Are you understanding what I'm saying? For every request, there will be a response. Okay, for every request, there is going to be a response. So the client's job is to ask questions and the backend's job is to give the answers or responses. That is what is the job of each of these two parties. Now, like I told you that the policeman has told the reporter that I can only answer Q1, Q2, Q3. Just like that, the backend will tell you that what kind of requests it can accept. Are you understanding my point? The backend will tell to the client or whatever person wants to get answers from the backend. The backend will tell what kind of request it can accept. It is very much like a restaurant menu. It's like a restaurant menu. The restaurant tells you what are the items that we serve. Just like that, the backend tells everybody what kind of requests it can accept. Are you getting my point? The backend tells what kind of requests it can accept. Clear or not clear? Okay, the backend will tell you what kind of request it can accept. Okay, cool. Now, how does the backend tell you what kind of request it can accept? So let's say inside the very backend, we have add to numbers function. Okay, inside the backend, we have add to numbers function. So what does the backend do is that in order to tell everybody what kind of request it can accept, what it does is it maps every function that you want to execute to a URL. Okay, to a URL. So what it will do is, let's say you want to run it on slash add to. Let's say you have, or the backend has something like this. So if you write something like this, localhost 7070 slash add underscore to underscore numbers, then you want two numbers to be added. Let's say you want something like this. So look at this diagram again. So in this particular policeman news reporter, we have understood that the policeman can only answer question number 1, question number 2, and question number 3. Therefore, just like that, the backend will also tell what kind of request it can accept. So let's say the backend can only accept one kind of request, that is add to numbers. Therefore, if you want to ask the question of add, if you want the backend to do add to numbers, then you have to make a request on localhost 7070 slash add underscore to underscore numbers, like that. This can be any name. You can choose to write this whatever you want, but we have written it in the right form. Is it like, no, it's an HTTPS connection. It's not TCP. It's basically HTTP protocol. Yes, we will learn how to implement it. That's correct. So it's like a mapping. So if you know how maps work in C++ or Java or whatever, unordered map, it's very much like that only, right? Key value pair. So where the key, I mean, it's technically going to be opposite. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like this. So here, this is your key. of your map and there's a value of your map. So if this key is going to come, then trigger this function. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Don't you think it is like key value pair of any programming language? For Python, it's like dictionary. For JavaScript, it's like a JavaScript object or a JavaScript map. For Java, it's like a hash map, a linked hash map. For C++, it's like ordered map, unordered map. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? Right? So if your backend application gets a request with slash add two numbers, then it will run the add two numbers function. Just like that, suppose we created one more mapping, which is, let's say, multiply two numbers. So we'll write mul two numbers and we can make it multiply two numbers. And so on and on and on. Clear? Clear? Okay. So it's 9:15 right now. I'm taking a quick 2 minutes break for drinking water and just a quick 2 minutes break before we resume the session. In the meantime, you can do your IDE setup, whatever is pending. Okay, so I'm taking a quick 2 minutes break. Let me start the timer also on the machine. Okay, I'm taking a quick 2 minutes break. Okay, I am back now. So 2 minutes are over and I'm back. Okay, so coming back to our topic, so we understood that if we want to trigger functions, we can only trigger them with the help of URL mappings. Okay, we only can trigger them with the help of URL mappings. Now, I want you to focus on the key over here. Add two numbers, focus on this part. Okay, so now I'll come back to this place and I will create a request. Request. 1 second. Okay, so look at this diagram that I've created, this one. So every request has three important things. One is going to be the type, the other is the URL of the request, and the third is data that is present in the request. Okay, so every request has three important parts. One is type, second is URL, and third is data. So right now we have only studied about URL, which is present over here. Okay, so we have only studied about URL. So right now we can see that our project, it has two functionalities. One is adding two numbers and second is multiplying two numbers. Okay, one is adding two numbers and second is multiplying two numbers. So in order to trigger these functions, we have to make a request. And like I told you that we have to make a request with the help of this URL. This URL, add two numbers, multiply two numbers. Okay, so focus on the word that we have to make a request. Okay, now what is a request? A request will look something like this. A request will have three parts. One is type, the second is URL, and the third is data. Are you understanding what I'm saying? One is type, the second is URL, and the third is data. So we already know what is URL. Okay, URL is basically just a mapping that how we want to trigger your function. Okay, so now let's talk about type. Okay, so a request can have multiple types. A request can have multiple types. Okay, let me just write it for you a little bit. So type. Okay, so type will have, or type will look something like this. Uh, just one second. So this is how type is going to look like. For where should I write it? Okay, there's one paragraph thing over here. Yeah, okay. Put it like this. Make it small. Yeah. So it's going to be like this. So these are the following types. So one is going get, which is the default. Second is post. Third is put. Fourth is delete. And then there are many others. So I'll just call it others. Okay, so these are your types of request. Okay, a request can be of many types. These are some of the most used and most popular types of request. These are some of the most used and the most popular type of request. Okay, so every request is going to have three parts: type, URL, and formula. So these are the four most famous request types: get, post, put, delete. Now, what is the meaning of get? What is the meaning of post? What is the meaning of put? And what is the meaning of delete? We will come to that in some time. But for now, I want you to understand that these are four most important types of request. Is it clear so far? Is it clear so far? Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit, just 0.1% about databases. Do you guys know what is a candidate key in database? Do you know what is a candidate key in database? No. Okay, fine. Let me explain you something. Let's talk about, if you are a working professional or if you have ever been to college, then all of you might have had something like a registration number, university registration number, or something like college roll number, right? College roll number. Yes or no? Okay. So that is, in the database language, it is called as primary key. So any piece of information that can make a piece of data or a database row uniquely identifiable, that is called as primary key. Okay, that is called as primary key. So The piece of like with the help of registration number or university registration number, roll number, that roll number or that registration number is not present with anybody else. It is only present with you. That's why if somebody gives your university your registration number, it will give you it will tell that person the information about you. Right? Just like your Aadhaar card number. Your Aadhaar card number will not match with any person's Aadhaar card number in the country. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? Right? It will not match with any other person's Aadhaar card number in the country. So it is called a primary key. Primary key. So primary key is a piece of information which does not, which uniquely identifies the data or uniquely identifies a row in the database. That is called as a primary key. However, a candidate key is when you need more than one columns in order to uniquely identify a data or uniquely identify a row. So with the help of combination of two or more than two columns, if you are able to uniquely identify the data, then that is called as candidate key. Okay, that is called as candidate key. Okay, so in candidate key, we need two or more than two columns. Okay, a candidate key may also be called as composite key. Okay, a candidate key may also be called as composite key. So just like that, we can uniquely identify any request with the help of combination of type and URL. So for example, if I write get and then if I write hello, this is going to be different than this. They both will not be the same. They both will not be the same. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? They both will not be the same. They will be different. See, even though they have the same URL, the type is different. The type is different. Okay, so if I write one more get hello, then this is not, then they are duplicates. Then these two are duplicates. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Overloading? No, we cannot say overloading. I will come to the difference between get post. I will come to it. For now, I want you to understand how it is same and how it is different. Clear? Are you able to understand? Okay, so whatever I said about candidate key or databases, that is just one concept I wanted to use in order to help you understand this. However, this is not related to databases at all. Okay, this is not related to databases at all. So in order to uniquely identify a request, you need two things: the type of request and the URL of the request. These are the two pieces of information that we require. Okay, so get hello and post hello are not the same. Okay, so now what is the meaning of get, post, put, delete? We will come to that. I will come and I will explain all of these things to you in detail. But for now, I want you to wait, because if I tell you that right now, it will only confuse you, which I don't want. And that will make you lose interest in the class, because you'll be like, I'm not able to understand anything. So what's even the point of being here in the first place? Okay, so I will come to get, post, put, delete later. For the time being, we are only going to make use of get. For the time being, we are only going to make use of get. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, let's go back and I will look at this particular file right now. Inside my folder org.geeks4geeks.crash course spring, inside this, I will do a right click, then I will click on new, and then after click on new, I'll create a new package. You see a new package option? So I'll click on package, and after clicking on package, I will see a pop-up like this. And inside this pop-up, I will write controllers. Controllers. You can name it whatever you want, but I am naming it controllers. And why? I will tell this to you in some time. Okay. Inside this controllers, I am going to write a Java class. And here I will write, let's say, my controller. My controller. Okay. So this is a simple Java class. Here I will write my basic function add two numbers. So I'm copying this and pasting it over here. Okay, this will not be static, so I've removed the static type. Okay, now focus on few very interesting things that I'm going to do. I will write @ get mapping bracket open, and I will write add underscore to underscore numbers. And here I will write at the rate rest controller. These are two things I've written. Now, what is the meaning of this? I will come to that. I will come to that. I know it will look confusing and you have a lot of questions, but I will come to that. It's already present in my head. So please wait. Okay. Now I want you to focus on these things. So here, before int A and int B, I want to write something. So I will write at the rate request param. And here I will write at the rate request param. This is what I have written. And I will restart my server, restart my application. So now it will restart. Okay, it has now started. Now I'll go back to my Google Chrome. And here I will write localhost 7070 add two numbers and just see what I'm going to do. I will write a question mark. Then I will write A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 10 and press enter. And what am I seeing over here? Do I see the sum? Do I see the sum? Okay, so I was able to make the request and I was able to trigger this function. So did I write this add two numbers inside the main function over here? Did I write it over here? Did I reference it? No, right? But I was able to trigger it with the help of localhost 7070 slash my URL. Yes, just like I was explaining over here. Just like I was explaining over here. Just like I was explaining over here. We did something like this only, right? The one thing that you're seeing on my screen. We did something like this only, right? Similarly, if I do multiplication, let's say I do the same thing for multiplication, I will stop my server. I'll just copy it, paste it over here. And if I write mul two numbers, and here I write mul two numbers, and here I write A star B, and then restart my server. Anybody requesting for the recording, it will be available on YouTube, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now I'll go back to this place, and now instead of add two numbers, I will write mul underscore two underscore numbers question mark A is equals to 10 and B is equals to 10. What should be the answer? 100? Yes. So if I press enter, I get what? I get 100. Right? So now how is this working? Let's go back. So technically what is happening is in this file, my controller, I have written that if somebody makes a get call to add two numbers, if somebody makes a get call to add two numbers, then run this function. Similarly, if somebody makes a post call, sorry, a get call to mul two numbers, then run this function. Are you able to understand this diagram, this piece that is present on my screen right now, how this is working? Okay. All right, great. Okay, so this at the rate get mapping is telling you that this is accepted when a get type request is going to come. Okay, this means that when somebody makes a get type request on this URL, then this is going to run. Similarly, when somebody makes a get request on this URL, then this is going to run. And like I told you that get is the default type. Over here, I told you, right? Get is the default type. That's why when with the help of a browser, when I'm making a request, it is of type get only. Clear? Is this clear? So this is called an API. This is something that you have created. This is called an API. And these things that you're seeing, the one which is on the left-hand side of the arrow, this is called as endpoint. This is also called as endpoint. So in many companies, in many projects, you will hear engineers saying, "Oh, I created an endpoint for you to do this." Or you will say, "Oh, they gave me an endpoint so that I can do X, Y, Z." Something like that. Endpoint. This is also called as endpoint. Okay. This is also called as endpoint. So are you able to understand what is the meaning of get mapping? Are you able to understand what is the meaning of get mapping? Okay. So if you wanted to do something with post request, then you would write @post mapping. If you wanted a put request, then put mapping. If you want to delete request, then delete mapping. Okay. So now you know how to associate a function with a request. Correct? Now you know how to associate a function with a request. Now you know how to create something like this. Something like this. What is a controller? I will come to that. That is for the next step. I'll come to that. So somebody is asking, what do you mean by endpoint? An endpoint is, it's difficult to explain. It is, it's a, it's an entry point in your application that somebody has created for you. So when somebody wants to add two numbers, they can trigger an endpoint, which is this one, get/add two numbers. So using this endpoint, they can add any two numbers that they want. Got it? What is request mapping and now how to? So request mapping is also one in it's like one step below get mapping. You can also do what get mapping does with the help of request mapping, but that people don't use it anymore. Can we say that it creates the key and we need to define value? Yes, something like that. You can, that's a correct way to understand it. So conceptually, you are correct. So here you are creating the key, and then this function is the value. So whenever this key is going to be associated, then this function will be triggered. Got it? Is it clear how to create the endpoint? Is it clear? Okay. Let's move ahead. Now, what is the meaning of get map? What is the meaning of get? Okay. So let's say you have a backend server, which is the containing the information of student backend. Let's say you have a backend server which is containing the information of student. Okay, or even more better than that, let's say you just have a backend which is connected to a database, DB. Okay, let's say a backend is connected to a database. This database has a student table. This database has a student table which contains the information of student. Okay, let's say that this backend is connected to a database and this database is containing information of student. Okay, this database is containing the information of student. Now, what are the things you will expect from this backend? As a user, you want to, let's say you are the administrator of school, then you might want to add a new student, right? So what are the operations you will want to do? One thing that you will want to do is adding new student, add new student. Correct? You will want to add a new student. If let's say new student has taken admission in the school, then add new student, right? Second thing that you might want to do is get info or get student info by, let's say, admission number. Third can be updating the info of a student. And last thing can be deleting a student. Can we say this? Can we say this? Okay, so these are four very popular operations that you will want to do. Okay, you might want to add a new student, get information of a student by admission number, updating the information of a student, and deleting a student. Okay, these are the four things that you might want to do. Okay, so these four operations are of four different natures. Okay, these four operations are of four different natures. So in this case, when you want to add a student, you will send the information of student to the backend, right? You will send the information of student to the backend, right? Then the backend will take that information and add it to the database. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? You will send the information of the student to the backend. The backend will then add that information of the student to the database, correct? So this kind of operation is handled by post. When you want to send a piece of information to the backend in order to create something, in most cases create something, then that kind of request must be handled by post. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Such information is handled by post. On the other hand, when you want to fetch some information from the backend, then this is handled by get, like the name suggests. When you want to get something, then use get. Okay, when you want to update something, then use put. And simply when you want to delete something, then use delete. What is patch for? Patch is used for partial update. Now you'll ask me, what is partial update? Partial update is when you don't want to update the entire object, but you only want to update one or two fields. That is called as partial update, and patch mapping is preferred in that situation. However, I don't want to talk about patch mapping right now because a lot of students don't even know what is get, post, put, delete. So I want them to understand this first and then come to patch later when we have time. So there is also update. So why use put? What's the difference? Is there an update also? I don't think so. I'm not sure. Let me check. I have never used it. HTTP verb. Mm, add post, put, delete, connect, options, trace, patch. No, there is no update. I don't know where you have seen it. This is MDN networks. This is everything about web development. There is no update, as you can see. So whoever told you about update, that's incorrect. It's not available. Okay, so these are the four most used HTTP request types that are used in order for these kind of approaches. Okay, so whenever we talk about these approaches, they are also called as CRUD. They're also called as CRUD. So here for adding a new student, you have to create a new student. So it is called as CRUD. Okay, this is for getting something. So it is like retrieving or reading. So it can be said as a read. Okay, then we have put. So CRU, update, and D for delete. So therefore making CRUD CRUD operations. Some people also call it CRUD operations, but mostly you will hear people saying it as CRUD operations, CRUD, 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 CRUD operations. Okay, these are called CRUD operations. What is the difference between put and post? If you only read 1 and 3, you will know what is going to happen. What is the difference between put and post? Post is used for creating new resource. Put is used to updating an existing resource. For anybody asking me the information on any other request type than these four, I would rather request you to wait because I want to make sure that everybody understand these four first and then talk about any fifth type of request because I don't want to mislead and make students confused about other type of request and overwhelm them with a lot of information. Okay, so are you able to understand what is CRUD operation? CRUD? Okay, so these are the four types of operations that are usually necessary. Okay, so usually whenever we create any database table, then we try to create a CRUD operation for every single table. Okay, we try to do that. Okay, so in today's class, there is a section or there's a requirement of building REST APIs with CRUD operations and then connecting to MySQL database, something like that. Okay, so now we will be trying to talk about database connection and making CRUD operations as well. Clear? Now that is what we are going to do. Are we all ready for that? So now we will be connecting our Spring Boot application to a database. Inside the database, we will be creating a database table, let's say student, and then we will be creating a student, getting information of student, updating a student, and deleting the student. Is it clear? Are you able to understand what we are going to do? Great. All right, let's get started. Okay. All right, let's get started and move ahead. Okay, so now I'll get back to Spring Boot over here. So now we know what is post, what is put, what is delete, and what is update put mapping as well. We know all of these four. Okay, so now we have to connect our application with a database, right? We have to connect our application with a database. Now, first of all, you are free to use whatever database you want to use. Okay, you are free to use whatever database you want to use. Geeks for Geeks, according to the syllabus I have gotten, according to syllabus I have got, I am supposed to use MySQL, but I am not going to use MySQL. I will use PostgreSQL, which is not going to make any difference at all. You are free to use MySQL if you want. You are free to use Oracle DB if you want. You're free to use Microsoft SQL if you want, whatever you want to use. As long as it is relational database, it will look and feel very much like how we are going to progress in the class. If you decide to use a non-relational database like MongoDB, Cassandra DB, MariaDB, DynamoDB, whatever, then it will look different and you have to handle the differences that will come between our class and your code. Okay, so that is something that you have to take care of. I will be making use of relational database, which is PostgreSQL. If you don't want to use PostgreSQL, you can use any other database of your choice. I will tell you what changes you need to do. But if you decide to make use of a non-relational database like MongoDB, DynamoDB, Cassandra DB, Atlas, whatever, then you have to take care of the code changes that is necessary for handling a non-relational database. Okay, so I'm just making this very, very clear right now only. Okay, so I don't want questions like, oh, I am using MongoDB, but this is not working in my system. So you handle it. Okay. All right. So let's go and make a database connection. Okay. So for making our database connection, I will go back to pom.xml file and I will first of all uncomment these things. Okay, uncommented. Okay, so I will reload it and firstly I will stop my Spring Boot server. I have stopped it now. The class is going to end at 11 p.m. Nancy, and this is already present if you had registered for your Spring Boot crash course. Every day it will start at 8 and end at 11 p.m. 3 hours every single day. Okay. Now, coming back to my controller, some people are asking me, Shantanu, what is the meaning of @REST controller? So, @REST controller, whenever any class is decorated with @REST controller, only then these things will have any meaning. Get mapping or post mapping, request mapping, whatever mapping you are going to do, only then it is going to have any meaning. So REST controller is an annotation. Anything that starts with an @ that is called as annotation in Java. So @REST controller is an annotation that is going to make a class capable of telling Spring Boot what kind of mappings are present inside your Spring Boot application. Are you understanding what I'm saying? @REST controller is a annotation which will tell Spring Boot what kind of mappings are present inside your application. If you don't write REST controller, Spring Boot will not be able to understand that there is a mapping of add two numbers with this function. Spring Boot will not be able to understand it. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Do you now, is it clear what REST controller is? Okay, is it clear what REST controller is? Cool. Now we are going to make our database connection. Okay, now we will go ahead and make our database connection. So whenever we are going to make our database connection, we have to come to our application.properties file. Now, what is the meaning of this application.properties file? First of all, this file has an extension of .properties. Are you seeing this? This file has an extension of .properties. Can you see that? The extension is .properties. Sharad is asking, can we only use @controller? Yes, you can, but that will not have the same, like it will, you need to write more code in order to handle @controller. Okay, coming back to application properties. Can you see that the extension of this file is .properties? Right? The extension of this file is .properties. So in .properties, you have to write key value pairs. Like you write a variable and then you assign it a value, something like this. Okay. So people are asking me to zoom. I think at the very start of the session, I asked, is the font size okay? Then you said okay. And now you're asking me to zoom. I have to, please understand, I also have to teach. Okay. So I have to take care of a lot of things, but it's okay. I will zoom it anyway. And you have to tell me if the font size is okay. If you ask me to zoom it again, then I will not do it. Font. Right now it's 24. Focus on this font and tell me if it is okay. Okay. So if I make it, let's say 28, is this fine or you want more? If you don't respond, I will not change the font size. Okay, I think this is fine. So that's it. I'll close on this. Little bit more, okay? I'll make it 30. But I'm not going to increase more than this because if I write font bigger than this, then it will become difficult for me to teach. Okay, so I've written in application.properties file. In application.properties file, we mostly write some pieces of information that are important for our project. Okay, so in this file only, we will write where is our database present. So I am going to use my PostgreSQL and I have PostgreSQL installed on my machine. On my MacBook, I have PostgreSQL installed on my machine. So first of all, you need to have a database instance of the database that you want to use, either on your machine or on some other place. It can be AWS, Google Cloud, whatever you want. It should be present somewhere. If you don't have it, then install it on your machine. If you don't want to install it on your machine, then you will not be able to move forward. Okay, so you need to install the database of your choice on your machine if you're not using it from outside. So I am using PostgreSQL and I have PostgreSQL installed on my machine. Therefore, I will be making use of PostgreSQL. Are you understanding what I am saying? Okay. Can we use pgadmin? Pgadmin is a tool that helps you read PostgreSQL. For using PostgreSQL, you need to have it somewhere. Okay, so let's get started. So in your application.properties file, we are going to write some information around our database. So because we are using PostgreSQL, I will write Spring dot data source, source. Okay, double O is source data source dot URL. And here I will write the URL of my PostgreSQL. Okay, so whenever we have to write the PostgreSQL URL, usually PostgreSQL works here on localhost, which is my computer's IP address. 5432 is the port for PostgreSQL. For MySQL, I think it is a different port. So people who are using MySQL, please try to use the port number of MySQL /Postgres, which is the database username. Okay, it is my database username. Okay, so this is, sorry, database table name. This is my database table, DB table. Not DB table, DB instance, sorry, DB instance. Postgres is my database. Okay, so this is the URL where my Postgres application is running, inside which I want to use a database called Postgres. Okay, however, in case of Spring Boot applications, we must always decorate this with JDBC colon Postgres colon slash slash POSTGRES. This is the right way. If you are using MySQL, this will become MySQL. Okay. And according to whatever database name you have, you can write database name accordingly. Then you have to write username and password. So I will write spring dot data source SOURCE dot username. So in my case, the username is Postgres. So I will write Postgres. I don't have a password, so I will just make that empty data source dot password. Password. So I will not write anything. That means it is empty. Now, most important thing, I have to write spring dot data source dot driver dash class dash name is equal to org.postgres SQL.driver. Because I'm using PostgreSQL, I need to write this. If you are using MySQL, please search on Google Spring Boot MySQL driver name. Whatever is the answer, that should be written over here. And according to that only, you must have the dependency. So in this case, for PostgreSQL, this dependency is needed. You just need to search what is the dependency for your database. So just write JDBC database name space driver. Whatever is the name, that is the right dependency you need to put over here. Okay. For example, I'll just show for MySQL people. So just go to Google, write MySQL JDBC driver. The moment you do it, it will show you what to use. No, not this. Yeah, this is the one, I guess. So you need to use this com.mysql.jdbc.driver. This will become the right thing for you in case of MySQL. So over here in application, this is what you will write for MySQL. com.mysql.jdbc.driver. This is the right thing for writing for MySQL. Okay. And just like that, in Spring Initializer, if you just go to add dependencies and write MySQL driver and go to explore, then you will see MySQL's information also, which is over here. This is the dependency for MySQL. I will just send it for everyone in the chat box. This is the dependency, and this is the name of your driver. Somebody's asking, is it okay to write DB user and password in that file? Is that safe practice? So usually people only do it for local development, for deployments, and for keeping this code at a place where other people can read it. This is handled by secrets. It's slightly different. Okay. All right. So this is what you need to do. And then your database connection will automatically happen. Okay. Now we are also making use of something called as JPA. What is this JPA? So in Spring Boot, we are going to make use of something called as JPA that is going to take care of our database operations. Okay, so this is only a database connection that we are doing, but to do database operations, we make use of JPA. So we also need to write some sort of configuration for JPA. So here I will write spring dot JPA dot database dash platform is equal to org.hibernate.dialect. You can hard code this, it's totally okay. And then I will write PostgreSQL dialect. Okay, so this is already present. You will also have MySQL dialect. That is also there. So whatever is your database name, just write that database name dot that database and then dialect. Okay. So I will send this entire file for all of you so that it's easy for you. Okay. The next thing that I will be writing is I think JPA dot database platform, correct? So now I'll write spring dot strng dot JPA dot database platform. Sorry, JPA dot hibernate dot DDL dash auto true. Oops, it should be is equal to dot true. And then lastly, I will write spring dot JPA dot show SQL equals true. This is optional. This is optional. You can choose to not write it. Okay. Can we skip dialect? Uh, no, you cannot. You're talking about the dialect is over here, right? You should not skip the dialect. You must not skip dialect. Okay, let me copy this and send it to you. Okay, so now this is present on the chat as well. Okay, please write this much and let me know so that we can move ahead. So for people who are asking what is a dialect over here, so I told you that we are going to make use of JPA in order to make database related operations. So JPA needs to know what kind of database you have so that it can make database operations internally accordingly. So each database will have slightly different type of queries, right? So if it knows what dialect to use, it will be able to use it accordingly. Okay. All right. So now that we have this written, now we will try to start this. Okay. So I'll start my application. And now this should run fine, given my PostgreSQL is running. If my PostgreSQL is not running, then it will throw an error. And I think that is exactly what happened. I think my PostgreSQL is not running. Yes. Uh, okay. I think somebody mentioned that okay, this is correct. I need to write this as update. Sorry about that. It needs to be update, not true. My bad. Update. I've edited the message also. Let me restart it. Now, if it fails, it should be because of database not running. Okay, my database is also running, so my application is also running, and a database connection has already been made. Okay, and a database connection has already been made. So I will open my Postgres or pgadmin. So pgadmin is used to use your data PostgreSQL database on your computer. So it is like a UI based tool that you can use in order to see your data, etc., etc. That is why it is used. Okay, so this is what pgadmin looks like. This is what pgadmin looks like. Okay, so I don't have a password, so I can just like, okay. Oh, okay, I think I know what's happening. Hmm. Okay, so let's get started. So now we have a database connection as well. So in my Postgres database, you can see that there is schemas. Inside schema, there is public. And inside public, there are some tables. This is something that I was doing at the time of writing some experimentation. So for the time being, what I will do is I will create a new database. Let's create a new database, or I can just use a Shantanu database over here. So in order to do this, I'll go back to my code and change this to Shantanu and restart. Okay, so if I do it now, then my database connection will happen with Shantanu, not with Postgres. Clear? Clear? Why I have made this Shantanu? Okay. Okay, nice. So inside Shantanu, inside schemas, inside public, and inside tables, there is nothing. You can see it's blank. Even if I expand it, it's coming as nothing. Okay, cool. Now we have to, like I said, we will be trying to write the information of student. Okay. So for this, inside this folder, org.geeks4geeks.crash course spring, inside this, I will create a new package and I will call it models, or I will call it entity, entities, entities. Inside entities, I will create a new class and I will call it student. Okay. So now first thing that I will do about student is I will write @entity. Now, what is the meaning of entity? Whenever we are trying to create a class and we decorate it with @entity, that means that the object of this class is going to be directly mapped with a database table. Did you understand what I said? Whenever we mark any class with @entity, that means that the object of that class is directly mapped with a database table. So because we are going to create a student database table and store the information of student inside that table and read it and update it and delete it, therefore, we need to make the student class as entity. Because whatever we will write inside the student class, the object of a student class can be saved in a DB table. Is this also called Pojo or is it different? No, it's the same thing. That's correct, Kiran. Okay, so here I have marked this as entity. I also have the control on telling what should be the name of my table. So I can, if I don't write the table name, then it will just assume it to be student, but I can write whatever table name I want. So I'll write @table and I can write a name over here. So name is equals to, let's say, student. So this is going to be the name of my table. Okay. If I don't write this, it will automatically create, but it is going to it usually takes the same name as the class. But if I want to have more control on this, I can just write the name with whatever I want. Okay. Entity framework type C#. I am not sure. I have not used C#, so I don't know. Okay. So public class student. Now the first thing is you can see the student is underlined with red. It says entity does not have a primary key. Do you know why this error is coming? Because student class is directly linked with a table. Therefore, there must be a primary key of that table. Are you understanding what I'm saying? There must be a primary key for the table. Therefore, it is saying, you must tell me what is the primary key. Okay. So let's say that every student is going to have an ID. So we will write we will write private. Let's call it long ID. Okay. And because this is going to be my ID, I have to tell the table that this is the ID. The moment I decorate this with ID, the error goes away. Java 17 we are using, Divya. Okay, so this is going to be the ID. Okay, now what are the other fields of student? We can write private string, let's say first name. Then we can write a private string last name. Correct? What else? Anything else we should need? I think this is fine for now for experimentation purpose. So first name and last name. Okay. So now inside the ID, I will write one more thing. So one quick thing. So whenever a primary key is associated with a table, and in this case, it is a long. Now, let's say when we are creating a new student object, then the ID should be automatically generated, correct? The ID should be automatically generated. If not, then we have to tell what should be the ID. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? We have two options. Either we automatically generate it, or second option is we have to manually provide it. So the good practice is letting it automatically be generated. So for doing that, I should write @ generated value, inside which I will write generator is equals to generated value dot. No, I think I'm making some mistake. It should be strategy. Strategy, yes, strategy is equals to generation type auto. This will make sure that it is automatically generated. But however, let's say you created your first student and the ID was 3. But now if you create a second student, there's no guarantee ID will be 4. ID can be 500. So that is usually not going to look good. Therefore, generation auto is not the best thing we are going to use. In case of long ID types, we make use of something called a sequence. So I'm going to write sequence. Okay. So sequence is going to maintain a sequence of the IDs that were used and therefore try to auto increment it accordingly. Okay. So now let's say a student has 3 values only: ID, first name, and last name. Clear? Clear so far? Okay, great. Now, second thing is we need to write the logic for creating a student and getting a student and updating a student and deleting a student, right? We have to do 4 operations. Now, for creating a student, we need to store an object of this class into the database. Is that correct? We need to store the object of this class into the database. Is that correct? We need to store an object of student class into the database. Is that correct? Because for doing this only, we will make use of JPA repository. We are going to make use of JPA repository. Veena is asking, explain generated value. Okay, Veena, this is just for you. We have said a student must have a primary key, which is of type long, and the name of that field is ID. Now, because it is going to be the primary key at the time of creation of a student, either we have to manually provide an ID which is always unique, or we can ask the Java code in order to or uniquely generate the ID, to automatically generate ID, to take care of it. When we want the second option, we have to do something like this. If you don't want the second option, then manually write a unique ID all the time. Clear? Okay, coming back. So I was just saying that in order to make use of database, we are going to make use of JPA. Now, JPA is very interesting and also very confusing. It will look extremely difficult at the start, but only at the start. It will make zero sense at the start, but you will be able to understand it. So only at the very start, it will look very difficult, but then it will become easier and easier and easier and easier and easier. Okay. So next thing that I want to do is that I want to write a few things. So I will write @column, which will tell me what column it should be used in. So name is equals to ID. That means this field will be mapped to the field of ID, and nullable is equals to false. That means this value can never be null, as it makes sense. Okay. Similarly, for every student, there has to be a first name. Name of that column will be first underscore name. And this field should never be null. Okay, because there is no student whose first name can be null. We cannot have a student whose first name is not there only, correct? So I will write column, and here I will write name is equals to last underscore name, and then nullable false. Clear so far? Is this file clear? The file that we are working on right now? Okay, great. Now inside this very folder, I will create a new package and I will call it repository. Repository. So in repository, we only write database related work. That is the work that is going to happen with the database queries that we have to do for a certain table, and so on and on and on and on and on. Okay, that is what we are going to do. So inside the repository, I will create something called as student repository. Student repository. Student repository. Okay. So as you can see, it is a class, public class student repository. First of all, what we need to do is we need to make this an interface. And this will extend our interface called as JPA repository. Now, this JPA repository is coming from Spring Boot, as you can see. It is coming from Spring Boot. It is a generic type interface. Therefore, I have to write something over here. So what is the generic thing over here? First thing is which entity I want to control using this file. So it is student. And the second thing is what is the nature of the primary key? It is long. So I'll write long. And that's it. Implements rahega na? No. So when an interface is a child of another interface, then it is extends. But when a class is implementing an interface, then it is implements. Somebody is asking what is the meaning of generics? That is in core Java, so that is a prerequisite of the class. So I might explain this to you when we have time left in the class. Okay, a repository file is a file where you only do database related work. Okay, a repository file is the file where you only do database related work. So technically, in this file only, we will write the logic of creating a student, getting a student from database, updating a student in database, and deleting a student from the database. Okay, now do you understand what is a repository? Do you understand what is repository? Okay, now what is this JPA repository? This JPA repository is an interface that is coming from Spring Boot. It is capable of making changes in your database. It is capable of making changes in your database. Okay, so now because the student repository's job is to make changes to the entity of student, therefore this student repository is extending a JPA repository of type student comma long. Now what is this long? We understood why student is written, but why long is written? So the signature of JPA repository says that you have to tell two things. One is the type, the entity that you want to query on, and second is the primary key of that entity. So primary key is of type long, that's why I've written it as long. If it was of some other type, then I would have written that. Okay, next thing I want to do is because it is a repository, I need to decorate this with @repository. Any questions, anyone? Any questions, anyone? Okay, let's move ahead. Okay, so now that we have created this student repository interface, now this JPA repository interface is having a lot of functions that are going to make use of, that are going to help us do basic stuff with the database. If we want to add any extra functionality, then we have to write that inside this file. Now, depending on the use case, we will come back to this file, write whatever we need, and then go ahead. Okay, what if we have pairs of column as a primary key? Then you create a composite key inside the student class and with the help of a class, and whatever class you create, that is the class name that will come over here, Ajit. The GPA repository name has to be the same. It cannot change. It is coming from Spring Boot only, right? So it is a dependency. It cannot change. What if too long data type is present? If that is going to happen, but technically it is going to consider whatever is decorated with ID. Now you cannot have more than one field decorated with ID. Okay, if you want a combination of multiple fields to be used as an ID, then use a composite key. Okay, I hope this is clear. Do we need to create getter and setter to encapsulate the field? Yes, we should do that. Because we are using Lombok, so we can just write @getter. It will take care of using getters and setters. So @getter, @setter is coming from Lombok, which is the dependency we have added in our Spring initializer. So it is going to take care of it. However, we can also write @data. That is a smaller way of writing, but this is going to give an error because for JP entities, it is going to make things really slow. Therefore, we should not use it. So getter and setter. Can we implement one-to-many relationship? Yes, we can. If required, we can do that. All right, now let's move ahead. So we have created the repository. Now the next thing that I want to do is I'll create a service package. Inside service, I'll create a new class called as student service. Okay, because it is a service class, I will decorate it with @service. Now, what is the meaning of service? What is the meaning of service? In service, we always write the business logic. For example, let's say to you have decided something like this. Let's say every student also has an email ID. For example, let's assume that every student also has an email ID. Now, you have created a logic in your college or your school that no two students must have the same email ID. It is your decision. As a principal of the school, you have decided that no two students must have the same email ID. You have decided it. Got it? Are you understanding what I'm saying? You have decided that no two students must have the same email ID. So whenever somebody is going to add a new student, then don't you think we need to check that the email ID that they are entering is unique or not? Yes or no? So that is a business logic. That is a business logic. This checking is something you want to do, which is very specific to your application. So that is your business logic. So whatever you want to do with student, all the business logic of student will come into this file student service. Now, technically, this student service has to interact with database also. Therefore, because it needs to interact with database, it needs to talk to student repository. Yes or no? Because student service is going to take care of adding a student after doing whatever things it has to do according to your business logic, it needs to access student repository to add the item to the database. Yes or no? Yep. Because of that reason, I will create a object of student repository in the student service. Student. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Okay. Now, you can see that I have written this as final. So according to Java, if you declare something as final, then it must have some value. It must have some value. Now, student repository is an interface. So I cannot create something like new student repository. I cannot do that. This is not possible. Okay, I cannot do it. So in order to take care of this, we are going to make use of dependency injection. What is dependency injection? Hold. I will tell you what it is. For the time being, just see what I'm writing. I will come back to dependency injection in some time because it is slightly more complex to understand. Okay. So for the time being, what I'm going to do is something like this. I will write public, or I will just create a constructor. And here I will write @auto_wired. What is auto_wired? It is related to dependency injection. So I'll come to it in some time. Okay. I will explain this part in some time. Okay, I will explain this part in some time. So please wait. Okay, now let's say we want to add a student. So I'll write a function public add student. It returns a student type only. This dot student repository dot save. Are you able to understand this piece of code? So technically, student repository, because it is extending JPA repository, it has access to a function called a save. And because student is an entity, it can accept it. If it was not an entity, then it will not accept it. Clear, not clear? Probably not clear, but I want to understand from you how much are you able to understand or not. Okay, I'll tell you. So you know that student repository has the control on database, correct? On student table specifically. Okay, so if I go to student repository, if I go to student repository is extending JPA repository. Okay, now JPA repository asks for two things. One is your entity and second is your primary key of that entity. Okay, so what is my entity? It is student. Therefore, student repository has control on student table. Clear? Is this part clear that student repository has control on student table? This is clear, right? That is clear? Okay, fine. Now, if I go to student, it is marked as entity. It is marked as entity. So we need to remember that. Now, if I come back to student service, we have taken a variable of student repository, correct? We have taken a variable of student repository. Now, because student repository is extending JPA repository, because of inheritance, it has all the functions that are present in JPA repository. Because of inheritance, it has all the functions and members that are present in JPA repository. Okay, because of inheritance. So because of inheritance, it also has the save function. It also has save function. So I can call this dot student repository dot save student. So here, because I'm calling student repository dot save, I can only pass the same, I can only pass an object of the entity which is declared over here. That means I can only pass a valid student object. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? Because student repository's entity is student, therefore dot save function can only accept a student. I will debug it, don't worry. Is it clear what I'm saying? Okay. So this save function is going to return the saved student, whatever student got saved. Okay, that's why I've written student added student is equals to this dot student repository dot save student. And whatever object I'm getting, I'm just returning it. I can make this a one line also by just writing return. Clear? Just like that. To get a student, I'll write public student get student by ID. For this, I need to pass a long student ID. Correct? Is that correct? Okay, so here I will just write return this dot student repository dot find by ID. Find by ID. And here I will pass my student ID. Okay, so when I have written something like this, I see a red color line under find by ID. The reason why it is coming is because our return type of this function is student, but this function find by ID does not return a student. It returns an optional of student. What does it mean? So let's say you provide a student ID 123 and that student with ID 123 does not exist. Think about a situation like this. Let's say you provided a student of ID 123 and there is no student in the database with ID 123. So technically you should get nothing. Yes or no? You should get nothing. So in Java, what happens is there is a concept of optional. There's a concept of optional. In optional, what is the meaning of optional? When some object or when some value can be null, then it is called as optional value. When some value can be null, it is called as optional value. Therefore, the right way of writing this would be something like this. I can say optional. So if the value existed, what would be the type of the value? A student. So I can write optional value is equals to this. So if this optional value contains any value, then that will be the student I need. If it does not contain any value, that means it has nothing. That means it has null. So I can just say if optional is empty, that means there is no value, then return null. Otherwise, return whatever value optional has. Return optional value dot get. Are you able to understand this code? Do you understand what is optional? Did you understand what is optional? Okay. For people who did not understand this code, but do you understand what is optional? Right? Okay. So if the optional has a value, or we can say if the optional does not have a value, then return null. But if optional has the value, then return that value. It's just simple as that. Okay. So the simpler way of writing this would be something like this. This is a simpler way of writing the same code we wrote. Return the optional value if it is there, otherwise return null. If I have the time, then I will take a quick revision. It depends on how much time I have left. Is records preferable than using Lombok, right? I mean, in a way, yes, but that depends on a lot of things. Records, usually we don't use it in Spring Boot unless absolutely necessary. Lombok is a good practice, so people use Lombok. Okay, so is it clear why or what optional is? Yes or no? Yes or no? Optional, clear? Okay, now let's write the code for deleting. Public void delete student by ID. Long student ID. I can just say this dot student repository dot delete by ID student ID. Is the code clear? Is the code clear? This part? Okay, fine. So these are the three things that we have written. Now, simply we have to go back to a controller and execute all of them. Okay, so I'll go back to controller and create a new controller called student controller. And here I will decorate this with @rest controller. Now we all know why that is needed. Now create some basic functions. Public add student, sorry, public student. Hmm. Is this much code clear what I have written? Is this much code clear what I have written so far? Okay. Now, to do whatever I want to do over here, I need student service. I need student service because all the logic is written in student service only. Correct? All the logic is written in student service. Therefore, I need student service in student controller. Yes or no? Therefore, I'll do the same thing that I did over there. Private final student service, create a constructor and write @autovide. And what is the meaning of these things? We will discuss in some time. Okay. Now, for add student, we need to decorate it with @post mapping. Post mapping. Let's say I write /student/add. Okay. And then here I will write return this dot uh, one second. Yeah. this dot student service dot add student. Here I will write at the rate get mapping slash student slash something. Okay, so that's a slash student, and here I will write return this dot student service dot get student by ID student ID, and then here I will write return this dot student service dot delete student by ID and student ID. Okay, there's no return, so it's fine. And then here I write delete mapping. Okay, is this code clear so far? Are you able to understand the code? Okay, now let's come to this part. Okay, so if I go to my controller, focus on the fact that I got A and B, and before A and B, I wrote request param. Do you understand what this request param is? Okay, let me go back to this diagram. So do you remember when we were discussing request, then I told you that it has three parts, type, URL, and data. Correct? It has type, URL, and data. Correct? It has type, URL, and data. So this data can be taken in from multiple parts of a request. So the data part of the request can come from many places. So a request has many, let's say the data part of the request has many smaller parts. Let me write it over here for you. So one part is, let's say, URL, or let's say query param, also called as request param. Oh, let me reduce this one. This is one part of the request data. Okay. There is one more part called as request header. One more part which is called as body. So as a software engineer, you need to know about these three parts only. There are other parts also, which we will not talk about it right now. But okay, there's one more. Okay, what I can do is, yeah. So as a software engineer, you need to know about these four parameters, these four parts, or these four types of different ways of sending data through a request. One is query parameter, also called as request parameter. Second is path parameter. Third is header, and fourth is body. Okay. So what are these things? In order to understand these things even in more detail, I will be using an application called as Postman. A Postman is an Indian company which is used for doing API testing. So because we are creating endpoints and we want to make them work, so we are going to make use of Postman. Okay. Let me first of all close everything. And here, let me create a new collection called as GFG crash course. So inside GFG crash course, let's say I want to add a request called as add new student. Okay, so first of all, what is the type of this request? According to the code that I have only written, the type of this request is going to be post mapping, right? Post mapping. So what I will write, I will go over here and select the type as post. Second thing is it is going to run on local host 7070/student/add. Correct? Now you can see Below this, there is params, authorization, headers, body, scripts, settings. Okay, out of which I told you about param, path parameter, header, and body. So can you see that params, header, and body is already present over here? Params, header, body, params, header, body. Do you see that? Params, header, body. So there are two types of params. One is called as query param or request param. Second is called as path param. Okay, so I'll give you one example. So if I come back to this URL, so focus on this part. So if I go back to my code, you can see that in my controller, I had written request param and then written int A and int B, which means when you want to pass the information of A and B, you need to write it like this: question mark A is equals to 10 and B is equals to 10. So this is called as query parameter or request parameter. Both are the same things. So your request information that you want to send is a part of the URL. Can you see it? It is a path or it is a part of the URL. Yes or no? If I don't pass it and just press enter, it says the site cannot be reached. Okay, that's fine. That's a Spring Boot thing. But you can see that the way to send the data is by adding it in the query parameter like this. Okay, using question mark and then having a key and value, something like that. So key is equal to value, ampersand, another key is equal to value, ampersand, another key is equal to value, and so on and on and on. This is called as query parameter. Okay. There is one thing called as path parameter, which is something even more interesting, which we will come in sometime. One part is body. So in the request body, we send the longer and more complex pieces of information. So for example, right now we want to send a student object only. You can see that this function of adding a student accepts a object of the student class. So how do we send this? If it was an integer or if it was a long or if it was a string, it was easier to send it like a request parameter. But if it's a whole student object with key value pairs on and on, how do we send it? So we can send it as a JSON. So with the help of request body, we can just send it as a JSON. So I have selected body, then selected raw, and over here I've selected JSON. Now over here, I will pass the information of what I want. So a student has only first name. Let's say the name of the student is Shantanu, which is me, of course. And the last name is Shubham, which is also my name only. So Shubham is my last name. Now don't laugh at me. I know it's weird, but this is what it is. Okay. So I've written first name as Shantanu and last name as Shubham. So if I run this, it will the API will run. So for the timing, let's say I just comment it and run the code. Okay, let me start it in debug mode so that it's easier for you. Starting it in debug mode and adding an breakpoint in line number 23. Waiting for it to start. Okay, something wrong happened. Let's check what happened. Uh, claims to not accept JDBC URL. Okay, there's something wrong with my JDBC connection that I've written in my application.yaml file or properties file. Let me see if I can just make it Postgres only. I think it should be PostgreSQL. Starting it again. Okay, so my application is now running. So if I go back to Postman, which is this, and if I click on send, it is going to create a request to my backend on this URL with this type of request, and this is my request body. Got it? So if I want to accept the same piece of information as request body, I must write over here at the rate request body. What this will do is that this will make sure that I'm able to accept this piece of information from request body. Because I have modified the code, I have to restart my server. So let me restart it for you. Restarting the code. Okay, it's running. So I go back to Postman and click on send. You can see it says sending request. The moment I click on send, the code stops here, which means this function has been triggered. Okay, so you can see the value of student over here. It has first name Shantanu, last name Shubham, and ID as 0, as it was written in the JSON. Are you able to understand the meaning of request body now, at the rate request body? Okay, so I will now go into this function add student, which will bring me to student service. And inside that, the add student function, this will call student repository.save, which means it will go and save the information in the table. So if I pass this, you will see that this is the info I get as response, because the return type of my function in student controller is a student. So I got a student object in response. That means my backend server has told me that this is the object that has been created for you. Now, if I go back to my database and refresh it, this is the public schema of what? Shantanu, right? So if I refresh it, refresh, you can see there's a new table called student. And inside the student, if I look at all the rows, you will notice there is one row over here with ID as 1, first name Shantanu, last name Shubham. Clear? Did you see how this worked? So now we did a C operation, that is create operation out of CRUD. Okay, now let's focus on read and delete. Okay, now let's say create one more user. Let's call this user as Satyam. Satyam Satyam. Last name as, let's say, Kesari. Okay, click on send. This will create one more user for me. Okay, this is you can see ID is now 2. And if I run this query again, now there are 2 rows in the database. Okay, now let's go ahead and write the other APIs also. So here I've written get mapping student and I need a student ID. So what I can do is I can write slash, then a curly bracket and write student ID. What does it mean? It means that the student ID is going to be a part of the URL. Kiran is asking it became 2 because of the sequence. That's correct. So here I can pass the ID as a part of the URL. Therefore, I can write localhost 7070/student/1, which means that give me the information of student with ID 1. And here I can write @path variable. So this name and this name must be same. If you want it to be different, let's say SID, then you have to write over here name as SID. Isn't ID generated at database level instead of Spring Boot level? That is correct. So Spring Boot triggers the database to create the ID and it maintains a sequence in itself. Again, asking question as you missed, auto-wired is optional and there's only one constructor. I will come to auto-wired later. Please, I want you to wait. Okay, so are you able to understand path variable? So let's say if I had to get a student, so I will firstly duplicate this, duplicate it, make this get. And here, if I want to fetch the information of students, I'll write student ID over here. Okay, so you can see path variables. And one of my path variable is student ID and the value, let's say, is 1. So whatever I pass, it will become 1 over here. Let's say I write it like that only for now. And same thing I will do over here also. And restart my server. Okay, it's starting to run. Okay, so in focus, I've written localhost 7070 slash student slash one. So now focus on this part of the code. So it says slash student slash SID, and then I've written path variable name as SID. That means whatever is passed in this piece of information must be the value that goes over here. Therefore, according to the code we have written, this is one. Therefore, the value of student ID will become one. They're here right now. There is no question mark. There's no ampersand sign. Do you see that? There's no question mark, no ampersand. So this is called as path variable or path parameter. If I click on send, this will give me the information of Shantanu. If I make this 2, then this will give me the information of Satyam. How we differentiate path variable and request param? Request param will always have question mark and ampersand sign. Path parameters will not have. Okay. So in Postman, one better way of doing this is making this a parameter only, student ID, and write the value over here. So if I write 1, this gives me Shantanu. If I write 2 over here, this gives me Satyam. Okay, now let's try to delete a student. We will try to delete the student Satyam, or let's say we create a third student also. I'll go to add student, create a third student, Akash Joshi, for example. Click on send. This creates a third student with ID as 52. Okay, now this because of the sequence maintenance in Spring. So it has automatically generated an ID 52. Okay, so now we are going to delete the student. Okay, so right now if I go to the database, press enter, then you can see that there are 3 entries right now. Okay, 3 entries right now. Now I want to delete the student with ID 52. So what I will do, I will go here and I will once again save it first. And I will duplicate this. Go to delete and want to delete 52 number. Click on send. You can see that it says 200. Okay, that means it was successful. If I click on this, you can see that that entry is now gone. Okay, so now we can say that we have successfully implemented C, R, and D. Yes or no? Can we say that we have successfully implemented C, R, and D? Somebody is asking when to use path parameter, when to use query parameter. If you only have to pass one value, then please use path parameter. This one value must be an like a primary key or something very important. Then it goes into the path parameter. If not, then use query parameter. Okay, cool. All right, let's move ahead. So this is how delete mapping and get mapping are working. So we are able to do C, R, and D. Now we have to come on the more complex, that is updating. So here I will write, or simply I'll go back to student service and I will write public student update student. In order to update a student, you can only update a student if it exists. Is that correct? You can only update something if it exists. If it does not exist, you cannot update it, right? So what do we need? We need a student object, first of all. Student, right? We need a student object. Okay, so we need to first of all make sure if the student exists or not. So I will write if this dot get student by ID, student dot get ID. is equal to null, then return null. Can we say this? Can we say this? Yes. And if the student exists, if the student exists, then what will happen? Or we can just write it like this. Right? We can just write it like this, right? So if the student is existing and we want to update it, then what should we do? Then we will write something like this. First of all, other than the ID, we need to copy all the other information and pass it to existing student. Okay, so now focus on one thing. First of all, there's an existing student. Let's say the ID of the student is 1. Okay, let's say focus on this. This is very important. Otherwise, you'll get confused. Right now, we have already understood that we cannot update something that does not exist. Therefore, we can only update something which exists. Okay, so let's say we are trying to update a student that already exists. Okay, so right now we have 2 students in the database that are existing. Let's say we want to update this Shantanu Shubham, whose ID is equal to 1. Okay, let's say we want to change the last name to Shantanu, let's say Kashyap, or Shantanu Singh, for example. We want to change the last name to Shantanu Singh. That's what we want to do. Okay, so first of all, we'll fetch the information. So this will become Shantanu Shubham, right? Or line number 30. Is that correct? Yes or no? Is that correct? Now, if I write, let's say, just saying, if I write student, sorry, this dot, student repository dot save student. If I just write this, if I just write this may throw a error, because what will happen is that it will think that you are trying to create a new student whose ID is equal to 1, and it will throw an error because one cannot, same ID is not allowed. Are you understanding what I'm saying? If I just write this, then what will happen is that the database will assume that you're trying to create a new entry into the database and not doing an update. It will assume that you're trying to create a new entry into the database, and it will say, okay, it is using the ID 1 because I already have ID 1, so I'll not allow the update. I'll not allow a creation of new instance. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Are you understanding what I'm saying? Because of this reason only and only because of this reason, what I have to do is I have to make the changes except the ID in the existing student only. So I'll have to write existing student dot set name or set first name student dot get first name and existing student dot set last name student dot get last name, and then this dot student repository dot save existing student. Did you understand what I did? Okay, so this is what we did. Now we'll go back to the student controller and create a put mapping. I have not muted myself. I'm just not saying anything. Something like this. Okay, here one thing, just one thing I'll do. If student ID is equal to student dot get ID, then everything is okay. All is okay. Or I should say not equal to. Okay, so this error handling will do in the next class, but just understand it. Okay, it should be the same. Okay, so now we will restart our application. No, dude, it is in a different file. I did not delete it. I think today we might not get the time of explaining auto wire, therefore I'll do it tomorrow. That is something I've already taken care of, Ranjan. Okay, so my application is already running. So I will now create a clone of this. First of all, this will be delete student by ID. So delete student and create a duplicate. This will be put. So the student that I want to update is, let's say, 1. Okay. Get student by ID. First of all, I'll get student object. So this is the student object, right, that I want to update. So I'll copy it, go here and paste it first of all. And now I want to change the last name to Singh. Okay, if I click on send, it updates the value in the database. And now I get it Singh. This is how we have CRU and D. Okay, is it clear what we did today? Is it clear what we did today? Okay, so this is how we can make CRUD operations in Spring Boot. Now, the complexity of your application will increase the complexity of the code. Okay, is it clear? Okay, I can take, let's say, questions until 11:05. So if anybody has any questions, you can ask me right now. Okay, questions related to the code. About recording, you will see it on Geeks for Geeks YouTube channel. Yeah. Just observe that you're adding this before every function call or data. Any significance of that? Java will auto. That is correct, but I think it is a good practice because this has to refer to the member of the class. That's why I always try to do that. Injection internal working. It needs more time than just 5 minutes. That's why I am trying to skip it for tomorrow. Why is Spring Boot complicated than MERD or Django? It's like what's the special in it? It has everything you need. And it's written in Java, it's more robust, it's faster, that's fine. That's the specialty. Django is slow, MERN stack is also slow. That's the problem with it. In this, sir, in generation type, when to use identity? It's more complex. Let me try to take this question tomorrow. Sir, Postgres and MySQL same queries like entry. Sir, Postgres and MySQL, I could not understand your question. What is the Spring APS? Very Spring AI scope in future? I don't know. Will you cover Spring security also? No, I will not. That's very, very complex topic and it needs more than 3 classes. Can you quickly explain about the saving the student object directly input mapping? Didn't understood the exact reason. Okay, one that's I can take. So in student service, okay, if I don't override or if I don't change the values in existing student, what will happen is Spring will assume that you're trying to save a new entry with the same ID. So if I would have just written this piece of code, then with student, then what it would have assumed is that you're trying to save a new entry with the ID is equal to 1, therefore giving you an error by saying that the primary key is getting violated. So instead of doing that, we found an existing value, updated the values in that, and then saved it. I understand everything, but how to remember request body path various syntax everything? By writing more code. Simple as that. What are you going to cover tomorrow? Okay, so let me just get that info. So tomorrow I am going to cover handling exceptions and validations in REST APIs, integrating with Postman for API testing, which is something we have already done, and introduction to microservices concept. I cannot quickly summarize it in 1 minute. I am not AI. Sorry about that. Okay. Can we do with curl? Yes, you can do with curl. Can you provide this code so we can run? Uh, I can put this on GitHub. I can do that. Request mapping use. Okay, I'll explain right now. Okay, so if I go back to my controller, okay, so instead of get mapping, let's say if I can also make use of request mapping, it is going to work the same way. So request mapping. Okay, now it has multiple things. One is path, sorry, path path, which will be slash add underscore two. It's going to do the same thing for you actually. Numbers. And then there is a method, which is going to be a get. It's going to do the same thing that this was doing. That's all the advantage you have. So is it making any extra advantage for you? No. If something simpler is existing, why you want to go to the older version? That's my whole point. Can we also use CPP library methods written on backend? I am not sure if CPP has a backend in the first place. Okay, let me push this code for you so that you have this with you. I'm going to share a GitHub repository with you. It's not going to be private, so share. Just pushing to GitHub. It'll take 1 minute. Yeah, now I have it. Git remote get URL git remote get URL origin. Just you can use this GitHub repository to get the access to my code. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining today's session. I will see you all tomorrow for more Spring Boot. And I hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope I was able to answer most of your queries as well. Thank you for joining today's class.